Hey everyone, welcome to Deus Ex Musica episode 10,
Double digits, baby.
finally, with your hosts,
Blendrix.
and
And Gosh.
myself, Gosh.
I thought we were gonna do the whole stereo on that, both say our names at the same time.
We'll eventually by episode 50 or so,
We'll finally have our shit together.
We'll figure out what we're doing. We're two musicians discussing topics that are important to us this particular, we would say week, but it's been a few weeks since our last episode. Eventually, we'll also figure out the exact schedule here, so we're still in the middle of transitioning movements and such. Stuff that's not important to you. But in any case, first topic of our episode today, Bernie Sanders has officially overtaken Hillary. As far as
in the two primary states where the Democratic race really gets going, it's Iowa and New Hampshire, I believe, and so I'm not sure what to think of that whole side of things yet, but it was definitely kind of interesting to see that. Oh, so everybody keeps basically only talking about Hillary in the news media, between everything that. What's going on in terms of her candidacy and all of the email fiasco stuff. Pretty much all the Democratic news cycle stuff gets focused on Hillary, yet Bernie's turnouts at his rallies are better. And
he has a more consistent message that he's also working on. Hillary, I think's main push is just kind of legacy. Her husband was president. She was, Secretary of State. Yeah. So she doesn't have a platform. She's just, I've been here for a while.
And it's sort of more of the same platform. We should probably also say what kind of beer we're going to be reviewing here.
I guess that's not a terrible idea.
So this is Tommy Knocker Brewery's Small Patch Pumpkin Harvest Ale. Get it? Small Patch? 5% alcohol by volume, an IBU of 15.
I honestly have been, since I've been away out of the country for so many years, I have not actually tried a pumpkin beer, so I was nagging Jimmy here to find us something that had pumpkin in it, so I'm curious. So
well,
it'll be,
here goes.
Here goes indeed.
Probably want to use the other end. There you go.
Cheers.
Yep.
We'll talk more.
Okay. So, that's of note. Bernie Sanders overtaking Hillary in the polls. There's a lot more to be seen in terms of what's going to happen there. But,
pretty much.
It's interesting. That's kind of where I'm
I wasn't super sold on Bernie when he first started, because I'm usually very suspicious of anything that comes in and says we're going to change things or we're going to do something that's better for working class or middle class or what have you.
Not to mention the fact that we've heard that message not that long ago, Obama.
Yeah.
And nothing changed, really. We got a kind of hacked up, not so functional healthcare system out of it, but it's nowhere near what he promised. And we also still have Guantanamo Bay. We also
are still engaged in war overseas.
Yeah, so pretty much most of the stuff that we were promised under the banner of change never actually occurred. So I'm a little suspicious of anybody who claims, "Oh yeah, everything's going to be different if you liked me." I
like the fact. Maybe in future episodes we'll do maybe a more political episode, but I was not super sold on Bernie. But what I like about the guy is he's consistent. Whether you agree or disagree with his policies, he's voted the same thing since the beginning of his career.
And the things that he's voted have not been in the interest of big industry kind of stuff.
No, and I mean, even if they were, if he was consistent, because almost everybody that's running now their voting records all over the place. So it's not you can't quite figure out 100% where they're coming from. Bernie, at least I know the angle he's coming in. It doesn't seem like, especially how old's the guy?
late 70s, I think.
Yeah, I think at this stage in the game, I don't think he was playing the long game to where he's like, aha, you thought I was going to...
Now I'm in a seat for world domination.
Exactly right.
I'll have all the women that I can... Oh.
Viagra research. But yeah, I think that might not be a terrible idea if we do like a future, like just a completely political episode. But just that was of note because a lot of people were not assuming Bernie was going to get any traction. And now the guy's actually like a contender. I really think it's going to come down to him and whichever weirdo they're going to get from the Republican Party.
Yeah, interestingly, and this is like, if you look at it historically, at this point in the game, Hillary was leading Obama when they were running against each other. And so Obama had only actually taken Iowa, whereas New Hampshire was still on Hillary's side. Now we're at a point in the game where he's actually where Bernie Sanders has taken the lead from Hillary in both of those states. So he's actually better positioned than Obama was at this point in his first election.
Right, and it's just, again, it comes down to the platform he's running on. At least you know exactly what he's running on. I still don't know what platform Hillary's running on.
It's pretty much like, you know, have you heard of the phrase when people say a rhino is a Republican in name only? It's Republicans will use that to refer to one of their fellow Republicans who actually votes more like a Democrat. I think Hillary, in a lot of ways, votes much more like a Republican because she's a war hawk. She's a big business, big industry. She loves Wall Street. She'll defend them to the death.
Well,
and so, yeah, and it makes sense. She's only doing what they're paying her to do, but that's not the way the politics should be. You shouldn't be beholden to your corporate donors through super PACs. Yeah. That whole process is completely buggered the entire.
And that's, I guess, we keep coming back. Maybe this is something we'll get into this time. But what's the biggest donation amount that Bernie's received? I think it was like $400 or something from workers.
Well, the largest amount that anyone can donate is $5,000. So I imagine he's probably gotten that much. But the thing is that he's not being funded by super PACs. A super PAC is a super political action committee, which is where they get a lot of large donors together, and then they funnel the money through these large organizations where they've got a bunch of other. It's essentially a legal loophole that allows large corporations to donate way more than they should be allowed to according to what the legal limits say. So that's what's going on there. It's really kind of bad news for the political process that this is even allowed. The fact that the corporations are considered people, which means they can participate in the political process in ways that they shouldn't be allowed to, because corporations can't be arrested for a crime. No. Corporations can't be put in jail. Corporations can't be executed. All the things that corporations can do.
You can't punish. They have the rights to do anything, but no
legal repercussions
for doing anything.
Right, exactly
right.
So that's, and the fact that they're allowed to participate in the political process as people is really screwed up. Anyway, I think we kind of beat this topic to death, and we may come back and deal with politics more as we get closer to the election and stuff.
Exactly.
So let's continue to something that is still political but has nothing to do with the presidential race. Take it away, Josh.
I hate to say that this is my favorite topic, but it just seems to keep coming up since, obviously, as most of you know, I'm from the Middle East. But, what was it, 3 days ago? 4 days ago?
Yeah, it's been less than a week.
Yeah. This high school kid of Middle Eastern descent.
iStandWithAhmed is his name.
And Muslim, because apparently people think that's a race now, even though it's a religion, was arrested and suspended for bringing in a science project to his, I think it was his physics class or such.
Yeah, it was a project that he'd been assigned to make for a science class. I don't know if it was physics or if it was
some science class.
It was a science class.
So he makes a digital clock at home, and he brings it in. I think it was his English teacher that called in.
Called the police
and said that there was a bomb, that this kid had brought in a bomb. Unless you've been hiding under a rock, I'm assuming you know the story. But in case, anyway, police get called. They come in. They arrest him. He gets suspended, and there is a couple of details in this story that convinced me absolutely that this was a very racial issue. A lot of people are claiming, well, it was just fear that there might have been some sort of device that was going to harm the kids or kill people or such. But it was a very racially motivated, I almost want to say crime at this point, because it was
that's a false accusation. That is a crime
based completely on race and stereotypes.
It's got to be, and the reason that we believe that it is racially motivated is here's what actually happened. And if in the hypothetical scenario where someone thinks there's a bomb at a school, what is supposed to happen is they're supposed to evacuate the school immediately, and they're supposed to call in the bomb squad, who is supposed to assess the risk and determine if it's actually a bomb, and if it is, they're supposed to disable the bomb or blow it up or whatever.
But what actually happened?
What actually happened was they called in the local police. The bomb squad was never brought to the scene. The local police arrested the kid and then brought the so-called bomb in their squad car back to the police station. If anyone in this whole process had actually thought it was really a bomb, they wouldn't have been anywhere near the thing. They would have evacuated the school, they would have brought in the bomb squad, and figured out what they needed to do with it. So what they're charging him with isn't with making a bomb, it's with making a hoax bomb. Because it's a crime, apparently, to make something that people might think is a bomb.
That's the problem. What the hell is what looks like a bomb?
Right. We were just talking about this earlier. So, like, a white panel van with no markings on it could especially parked in front of a federal building or a school, could be considered a hoax bomb.
Exactly right. Or a backpack.
Or backpack that no one is standing next to, that's inside the gymnasium and student assembly. Like,
anything
could be a bomb.
So
how is it that they say this is a hoax bomb, especially when he brought it to the teacher and said, "Look at my clock"?
And a lot of people are saying it's like, well, he shouldn't have put it in a case or what.
Like, what else is he supposed to put it in?
Like any electronic is usually in some sort of casing.
Watches to make sure that people don't get shocked by it, or to make sure that it doesn't get short-circuited, or
you put it in a case
that it's easy to carry around, so you don't have wires dangling all over the place. It's convenient to put electronics in a case, but anything could be a bomb. Show them the cigar box. Nondescript black case.
I could probably put.
Oh no! It's a wire, guys.
and that's most of my frustration is from the fact that people are trying to deny that this is a racially motivated issue.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people said, well, if a white person brought it in, it would have been that would have happened. But I don't know. It would not.
If they really thought it was a bomb, they would have brought in the bomb squad.
Exactly right. This was specifically done. I mean, as shitty as it may sound, this was done to humiliate the kid.
Mm-hmm.
There were nothing that happened shows that there was any legitimate fear that this was actually something that could harm people. From the get-go, the teacher, if he had said it was a bomb, then the police themselves would have notified the bomb squad and they would have appeared. This guy probably said there's some Arab kid with a box, and I don't know what other words he might have used, and either the cops weren't told that it was a bomb.
Yep.
And then they get there, find out it's not a bomb, arrest the kid for not having a bomb, and then the school, on top of everything, suspends this kid for 3 days. On top of him being arrested for 3 days as well.
Right. So what this has actually brought about is now the kid is getting all kinds of cool opportunities to meet famous people, like he's getting to meet with the president, he's getting to meet with Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook. He's got a laundry list of scholarships and other kinds of things that have been given to him, which is great. But you shouldn't have to go through an arrest and suspension in order to get the opportunities that that you should probably have anyway, just for being smart. Maybe he, just for being a smart middle school, high school kid, he shouldn't be meeting with the president or Mark Zuckerberg or whatever. That maybe isn't necessarily an appropriate level of reaction.
I'm not begrudging him for meeting them, but the fact that you shouldn't have to go through that. You should just be treated as... I really doubt that if it was a white kid that brought in this contraption, that anything would have happened.
Right.
And
I actually saw an article recently. It was like, here's 7 cases where white kids brought clocks to school and didn't get arrested. Homemade clocks that they made for their science projects. And and all of these were from news sources where some local news anchor was doing like
presentation on-
it was like a public interest piece where they're just doing, here's a cute little kid who made an awesome little thing, check it out. And nobody ever, said, what if it's a bomb? They only thought it was a bomb, or that that it was a hoax bomb because the kid had brown skin and had an Arabic sounding name
and was Muslim.
Right.
That's pretty much.
So
this is just constant. I was writing earlier last week about how I'm starting to come to doubt that this was in fact the same country that got people to the moon. I have a I don't know if I want to call it a theory, but I doubt that the ancient Egyptians are the same Egyptians that occupy Egypt now, because I just don't see the intelligence level being on the same. I don't see the people living there now as having the capability to get it together enough to build something like the pyramids.
And are you saying that you don't think that the United States could actually put a man on the moon again?
At this point, no. I mean,
they can get a rover to Mars. I'm sure they could get people on the moon. The only reason that we're not doing it anymore is because of the fact that
we keep fucking ourselves with either stupid political issues or financial issues.
But there's nothing really more on the moon that we need to discover. That's the primary reason why we're not going anymore. We figured out all the stuff about the moon that we needed to while we were there in the 70s.
I'm not talking specific. I guess I'm not talking specifically the moon.
Okay.
It's just I don't know. I think it's almost a different breed of people back then.
Well, absolutely. That part, I don't know if it's a different breed of people because most of those people are still alive today, but what's happened is the public mindset has changed. There's a lot less enthusiasm for science and discovery today than there was before.
For anything worthwhile, I would assume. Like,
I almost wish we should just have another Cold War, because that was what really...
It's... I mean... I don't know what it is.
It was the rivalry between us and Russia that actually pushed everything.
Rivals are always good, but it's just the things that I'm seeing a lot of people are interested in these days are absolutely inconsequential.
Mm-hmm. Like we didn't have Nicki Minaj back in.
No, we didn't have Nicki Minaj. No, that's just I'm not saying there was another article I read where like, let's make America great again, and this guy goes into saying, like, back when they had slaves, or back when we got engaged in Vietnam, or back. I don't know if...
No, there were parts about our past that were better than they are today, and there were parts about our past that were worse than they are today. I think the key is to figure out what parts of our past we should bring back, and what parts we should just say, you know what, it's better that we don't do that anymore. Like, for instance, slavery we shouldn't be doing anymore. But at the time when slavery was happening, people actually had better work ethics. People had better understanding of what patriotism actually is and what it does.
Patriotism is not only a gun.
Right.
That is not the singular patriotic thing to do.
Right.
Walking into Walmart with a gun is kind of a stupid, irresponsible thing.
Right.
Honestly.
Yep.
So that's not...
Unless, if you're concealed carrying, you're not frightening people. I will admit that I used to believe in the open carry kind of stuff, and I started to realize, you know what, I'm probably doing more psychological harm to people who I'm walking around. If there's somebody who has PTSD who sees me walking around with a gun, that may trigger their PTSD more. It's also less strategically advantageous for someone to walk around open carrying because they're more likely to be a target for someone, or the very first person that someone who actually wants to commit violence is planning to take out, or they could just get held up for their guns. Like, hey, give me your piece, thanks, bye. Like,
being courteous is not that's. That's not a topic that we were planning on discussing, but there is a kind of what's the word I'm looking for? A mentality that seems to be overtaking quite a bit of the U.S. where it's not American to be courteous. Like, fuck you world, as opposed to how can we work with you, rest of the world? No, it's a fuck you, USA is better kind of mentality.
Right. And American exceptionalism is
exactly. And it's also coming into the US. Oh, you don't like me carrying my guns? Well, fuck you, go somewhere else.
Right.
Like, well, there's a lot of things I would rather do, but just being courteous, I just don't want to cause other people hassle or issues, because to me, a lot of it is not worth it. It's very comfortable wearing Middle Eastern clothing during the summer, but I know that might be very weird and somewhat disconcerting for people here, especially
you get enough flack as it is, just being brown, let alone dressing like it.
Exactly right. So
yeah.
I don't know if that's a good example, but that's just something. I used to have my head shaved, and I noticed that made a lot of people uncomfortable because I think a lot of people associate shaved heads with some sort of violent personality.
A lot of times it's just the sort of the archetype of the tough guy.
Exactly.
People with shaved heads is like this because, well, if I have hair, then my opponent can grab my hair,
and
so I better make sure that I have the least number of grapple holds on my body as possible.
Exactly right. So it's. I mean, I don't have a massive list because, as big of an asshole as I am, I don't have actually antagonistic shit that I do just to annoy people. So, but to me, honestly, I didn't. Well, I don't want to say I grew up around guns, but I was in a couple of active war zones when I was a kid. So seeing guns, it doesn't give me PTSD, but it makes me highly, what's the word I'm looking for?
On alert, right?
Exactly right. Yeah. Especially when the people that are carrying it, I would assume, since most of the people that do open carry hate people like me. So I have to be like hyper alert that this guy doesn't get like a racist attack suddenly in the middle of like the grocery store and decide, hey, that guy with the beard.
Yeah.
So, and all I've got in my hand is like the canned peaches, and hopefully I can like beat him before I take him out. So it's very aggravating the fact that even to this day that we are still, and the problem is this is a kid. It's not even like an adult that brought in some sort of device. Mm-hmm. It's a kid in middle school, I think.
I think he's 14, so he's probably a freshman in high school or a 8th grader.
No, I mean the sad thing is this entire situation is happening to a kid in middle school or first year of high school, not even out of college, and people our age, older than us, are being so nasty to this kid. I had a conversation at the gym of all places. Hi, girl. I had a conversation at the gym of all places where this guy was telling me, it's like, what's impressive about building a clock? We built clocks decades ago. Now, there's two things wrong with that sentence. First, it's kind of impressive that, this kid at 14 built a clock. Second thing, we didn't build clocks decades ago. We've had them for a fucking couple of 100 years.
Yeah. So, maybe 1,000, actually. So if you go back as far as the monks that made the first clocks to wake themselves in the middle of the night for prayer.
It's been a while, so somebody saying decade, just the multi-level of stupid of that conversation kind of got me.
Yeah, but it isn't even a question of, whether someone's innovated something or not. Like, he's doing something that's much more involved than just consuming. He's creating something. No matter whether he was making something that had been made before, technically, plenty of inventions are basically 90 or 95% already stuff that was invented. And the only thing that's really new about it is some minor tweak. And,
he's a manufacturer or some sort of efficiency. Or
subscribe to Gizmag and get their newsletter every week or so. And all you're getting is basically all these things that are here's this thing that's already been around for a long time, but there's a new thing about it that makes it so much cooler. I bought an alarm clock when I was in college that was just like every other alarm clock that I'd ever had, except that it had a little pad on a wire that came out, and you would put the pad in between your mattress and your box spring, and it would vibrate to wake you up in the morning instead of just a...
I didn't know that.
And it's like, okay, yeah.
Cool.
The thing that inside the pad that vibrated was a little motor with a little offset weight. That had already been invented a long time ago. The wire that transmitted electricity had already been invented a long time ago. So had the alarm clock. All that someone did was put together a few things that had already been invented before, and bam, a new innovative technology that actually appealed to someone. So the fact that a 14-year-old kid is reinventing the wheel in some regards, well, so what? He's probably figuring out how things work, and if he can do that, then he could probably parlay that into an actual invention later on. So yeah, so what if it's already been made before? Are you saying that we should never invent anything out of stuff that's already been made before? We should never make improvements on previously existing things, or just make something to see how it works so we can understand it? That's a preposterous argument.
Well, and on top of that, I think a lot of these arguments were motivated to... People were trying to hide their racism by trying to make this thing seem like it wasn't anything important.
I don't care if it wasn't impressive at all. Well, he could have made his own dog bowl. But if they're going to say it's a bomb when it clearly wasn't, that's the true issue.
That is the issue. But I guess my aggravation is if people just came out and said, "Look, I'm racist," and I called in this bomb threat because this was an Arab Muslim, I would say, "Okay, you are a piece of shit, but at least I know where you're coming from." But with these people saying, "Well, first off, it could have been any student," which is a lie. The second's like, "Well, even though it wasn't a bomb and it was a clock, well, it wasn't really that impressive because we made clocks before." So you're trying to bury your racism under other unrelated stuff.
Yeah.
Complaining
Red
about
herring.
Exactly right. So that is the issue.
And just for a personal story of a time when a white kid did make something that was actually dangerous, brought it to school and didn't get in trouble for it, I made a battle bot in my robotics class in high school. It was actually made to destroy things. That was its purpose, and it was its stated purpose, and it was capable of destroying things, and I still didn't get in trouble.
Well, your skin tone is so
exactly
rosy.
Yes. So I didn't get in trouble because no one thought, okay, maybe he's trying to hurt somebody with this thing. I mean, we talked about all kinds of things that could have gone into that. I mean, we never actually made it do any of the things like projectiles or explosions because those things were not allowed in the robotics competition, the battle boss competition. But if they had been allowed, we probably would have rigged it up with some sort of projectile system or an explosive device, and we probably still wouldn't have gotten in trouble for it. So, I think the idea that it's not racially motivated.
Well, I have a similar story. Now let me relate to you my semi-racist robot story. I was a robotics major at CU Boulder, and during my last year and a half, my big project, I wanted to make exoskeletal systems for things that may have had to do with some sort of military use. There's a lot of other use that goes into exoskeletons,
right?
Obviously,
like rescue stuff,
construction. But we all grew up on action movies in the 80s and 90s, so and anime. So I just want a robot you can wear. Anyway, my professor put the kibosh on that particular project because I think he's like, oh, he's Middle Eastern. I think there was like 4 Arabs in that entire school, and none of them were in robotics. So eventually, the only project he would let me do was a flying camera, which was really boring and not what I wanted to do, and probably less likely to carry weapons and such. So I don't understand what the reasoning behind it was. I'm assuming he thought I was going to build a robot and somehow I had to go berserk and program it to kill white people. So anyway, so it was even back. Although I would have to say that I felt less racism back when I was in high school and college than I do now. For damn sure. The racism's been definitely on the rise this past decade, and it's really been stuff that, as much as I dislike to say it, it's been the U.S.'s fault. The fact that they went into an engagement in an area they weren't supposed to be in, creating resentment there, and then those people hurting Americans, and then Americans thinking those people hurt them for no reason, is creating this domino effect of hate all around. But this whole story of racism, I don't want to say gracefully dovetails, but badly dovetails into our next topic.
Okay. So, can't recall if we actually covered the original incident with Charlie Hebdo in France on this podcast. I know we talked about it between the two of us extensively, but maybe our fans can remind us on that. But so to give a sort of a recap of what occurred there, Charlie Hebdo is a very tacky quasi-humor.
I wouldn't even say quasi.
Well,
humor pretender.
What they're trying to be is offensive humor. I think what they're going for is irreverent parody or irreverent lampooning of anything establishment, whether that's religion, politics, all that kind of stuff. But unlike a lot of the South Park and other irreverent parody kind of stuff that does a good job of putting the establishment on blast without actually getting to the point where they're inciting people to violence.
Also keep in mind that there is intelligence behind that humor. I mean, take something like the Stephen Colbert Show. That is highly intelligent, but somewhat offensive. I mean, the Daily Show to some extent was that way as well. There is a lot of intelligence that goes behind that humor. So even when it is offensive, you can kind of look and say, okay, I see the thought process behind this humor. So,
right.
But with Charlie Hebdo,
they go and have gone over the line quite a bit. Of course, none of that is meant to say that the reactions from extremists that decided to take the battle to them was justified, because it was absolutely not. And we both agree on that point.
I mean, as much as I hated what they did,
they didn't deserve to die.
No, and that's something I made very clear. They did not deserve to die, but also on the same token, they incited that reaction. And I hate to say it, but there are reactions to... It's like a skinny guy taunting a larger person. The larger person beating him up is not justified, but that is the reality of the situation.
Right. So whether or not we're not blaming the victim here.
No, not at all.
But to a certain extent, you can kind of expect certain things to happen in reality. When bullies exist, you can taunt them and get your ass beat, or you can decide, you know what, I am going to try to say things in such a way that will maybe get my point across without causing them to beat the crap out of me.
Or to a degree to where other people would say, you know what, we'll stand with you because this thing was not deserving of this reaction that you got.
Which a lot of people did during their original incursion, or I should say their original offense.
But
a lot of people stood with them because
I don't think it was due to the humor.
Well, no, it wasn't due to the humor. They were defending their freedom of speech.
Exactly.
And yeah, okay, so people have freedom of speech, but just because you have freedom of speech to be able to say anything you want doesn't mean that you are free of dealing with the consequences of what you say. You're free to say whatever you want, but if that thing that you say provokes someone to violence against you, in fact, there's even laws that say that there's an exemption for freedom of speech. For instance, crying out fire in a crowded theater is a crime, unless there's actually a fire.
Yeah, even though that is freedom of speech.
There's even clauses in the law that talk about what's called fighting words. So if you were to say something to someone,
I'm going to kill you.
Well, that's an actual threat. That's considered assault.
But that is speech.
That is speech, yeah. But fighting words in law, and it's not the case everywhere. Not everywhere has fighting words laws. But there are some places where someone can say something that is so egregiously personal and likely to cause a volatile response in the person that's hearing it, that it's kind of legally indefensible. That if the person comes back and hits them, they shouldn't be held responsible for that. So I don't necessarily even agree with those laws. What I'm saying is the fact that those laws exist means that there's precedent for the fact that there's sometimes people are just going to go unhinged if you say the right thing to them, and you should expect that kind of thing might happen.
And I'm not pretending that it hasn't happened to me. I have a very sensitive topic. I'm sure most of us here do. I love my mother.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody says anything about I've beaten the shit out of somebody for making "your mom is so fat" joke. Every one of my friends knows that's not a topic. And
I got a free pass on the first one. He was like, "That's the last time you can make that joke." I was like, "Okay."
So it's to me, freedom. You can make mom joke, but the thing is also, even if I have to deal with consequences, I will react to the things you say. I'm not saying murder somebody.
But they might be missing some teeth.
But exactly right. And the thing is usually when you give somebody a heads up, hey, this is an offensive thing, please don't do that again. Going back to our initial topic, where just respecting other people's, I guess, as long as they're not overboard, their sensitivities. I know certain people have topics that set them off or are troublesome for them. Imagine somebody, who lost their dog. You don't make a joke about a dog getting run over. It's just, technically it's freedom of speech, but just, it's not.
There's insensitivity to that. It's like that's like making fun of someone's loss, making fun of someone's agony and suffering. Like,
it's not even insensitivity at that point. You are particularly going after that thing to hurt them. It's not a passing joke that you make. Right. It is what hurts you.
Like, the alternative to going after them specifically to hurt them is to go after them because you know that it's going to be controversial and it's going to get you press.
Uh-huh. See?
And that, I think, is what happened in this most recent iteration, which, since I talked about the precursors to all this, go ahead and describe what just happened recently.
Exactly right. And there is, don't know how deeply you guys follow a lot of the news that's happening in the Middle East. I'm sure most of what you hear here is brown people are blowing up brown people. But there is a massive situation in Syria to where it's gotten to the point where there is now a massive, massive refugee issue. People trying to get out of Syria.
Because things have gotten so bad.
Because they've gotten so bad. They are being murdered in their houses. They found 2 homes that were stuffed to the roof with something like 20,000 dead bodies.
Wow.
Just these houses were used to just stuff corpses into. So it's that level of bad. So there is a refugee issue, and while they were on their way, some of these boats were on their way across the pond. A couple of the boats capsized on their way to Greece, and what washed up on Greek shores were dead babies, essentially, like corpses of children washed up on shore, not living children, corpses of kids washed up on shore, on the shores of Greece, while they were trying to get away from getting butchered and murdered in Syria. What did these guys do?
Charlie Hebdo. Again,
Charlie
Hebdo.
Hebdo.
What they did.
They made comics. They were pretending that the comic they made was to poke fun at European consumerism, but they used dead kids.
Actual dead kids, not hypothetical dead kids.
Dead kids.
Yeah,
like there's a very famous image.
A particular one, a certain kid being plucked out of the ocean.
Yeah, by one of the
was a rescue worker or
something to that. Just some sort of official. Like there was a picture of him dead on the beach, and then another pic, and then one of the jokes was, silly Muslims, only Christians can walk on water, and they were showing Jesus walking across the water and this kid drowning. And then they were showing another one where, the reason they tried going across the pond was because McDonald's had a 2-for-1 Happy Meal type of thing. So
it's inexcusable. Like, I see what they were trying to do, but
is this really the time?
No, not at all. Like, people are still sensitive about 9/11 jokes.
I don't make 9/11 jokes.
Well, yeah.
Well,
but there are some comedians out there who will make jokes about it now, and they get like significant negative reactions from the crowd. That's been 14 years. This happened like less than a month ago, and they're making fun of it. They're using an actual dead person, a person who has a name and a birth date and parents and like cousins and stuff who are mourning for that person currently, and they're using that as a political talking point. And I find that to be repulsive. And that, so still doesn't justify them getting shot or beheaded or any of that kind of stuff. But I kind of sided with them last time, saying that, nothing should be sacred. You should be able to make fun of ideas. They were making fun of religion, which I think that
is fine.
It's fine. Making fun of religion is fine. Doing it really offensively might be a little borderline, but still, I'd support the ability to make fun of ideas. When you're making fun of the death of a specific person, I can't think of any,
not even a person,
like, there's all kinds of... Yeah, a child. Okay, should a child be worth more than an adult?
The thing is to me, I don't know. When adults are old enough to have done something to where maybe people would have negative feelings towards it, but when you tell me, like, a 4-year-old...
could have done nothing to anyone that was worth being killed.
And just considering the situation that their parents were so desperate that they were willing to get on a rickety boat, paying these fucking human
traffickers. Yeah, I forget they call them coyotes or
something like that. Yeah. To get them across, and the fact that that there's a chance that your children might die going across the water, but you did it anyway, showcases how horrible the situation they were. And then they do die getting across the water, and then these fuckheads come in. Not even 2 or 3 days. They did not even wait 2 or 3 days. It was essentially the next day they go in. Honestly, it would be wrong. It would be illegal. if I was there, if I was within physical distance, I would go in and I would beat the ever-living shit out of every single person in that building. Would I kill them? You know what? Maybe. I'm not saying it's right, but that would be my reaction.
Right.
And anybody that tells me, no, this is freedom of speech, I'm going to have an issue with. Because when you bring in kids escaping genocide, essentially, and having to go across the ocean and not even dying in their home. They died on foreign soil, and not died of disease. They died of drowning. Has anybody almost drowned? You know how horribly unpleasant that is? I've almost drowned. And it was the worst thing I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
So it's just it's inexcusable. So
completely innocent, total bystander to the entire conflict. Had nothing to do with any of the violence or genocide or any of that kind of stuff there, and died as a result of trying to get away, trying to find a better life somewhere. And they're getting made fun of.
Yeah, and they don't even know what the situation is. They're too young to even know what's going on in their homeland. Just how terrifying it must have been to leave Syria, get on this boat, not know what the fuck is going on, and then drown. And then on top of everything, these fuckheads come in and use it as a... They do not have the mental aptitude to make a political point. And then to try and pretend that this was a political point, it's like, oh no, we're just... Fuck you.
Now, I honestly think that it really comes back to the whole selling more papers thing.
Yeah.
The issue of Charlie Hebdo that sold the most copies ever
was the previous one.
Was the one that they made fun of Muhammad. It was actually the one that they issued after being like half of them had gotten killed in this attack, right?
Yeah.
They've issued another one with an even bolder statement. That was the one that sold the most copies. So I think now they're in the mode of, okay, well, we need to sell more ads, so I guess we need to be able to tell them we can circulate another 5 million copies or whatever. We need another equally hideous, preposterous, barbaric cartoon that will sell copies strictly from the morbid curiosity factor.
I would be very happy to hear that this issue flopped. I didn't see what the numbers were. I haven't heard anything.
I don't know, but honestly, if history is to give us any idea of what's likely the case here, it's probably that it's another record breaker.
I can see it being that, but I would be happy if it was one of their lowest, just people trying to say that's not okay.
Right.
But who knows? So that, to me, I guess the point is, where does freedom of speech end? I never want to have anybody be silenced, but I think there has to be a level of, look,
empathy. Empathy is really what it comes down to, and the problem is that's so subjective. It's hard to figure out where you can actually draw the line and say that you're lampooning someone where you still have human empathy for them. In this case, I think it's pretty clear-cut. Almost anyone would say that, yeah, they went too far. You shouldn't make fun of dead babies. Maybe they are exercising free speech rights, but what's funny? They're based in France. France has actually some of the most restrictive policies in place in regards to speech.
You can't claim U.S. free right to speech when you're not in the States.
Right.
And nobody in the States did anything.
No, it's not even like France. Their laws regarding free speech, it's really draconian. Actually,
Yeah.
You can't make fun of religion in France. That's actually on their law books. The fact that they're able to still get away with this is kind of,
illegal.
It's illegal in France. I don't know how that hasn't come down on them. I don't know.
Maybe because they're on the world stage now, people would say.
I don't know. Maybe. But
just, there's, I don't know. It's a very aggravating topic. And the fact that I got into arguments about people saying, no, that wasn't wrong, frustrated that I usually don't have an issue with being a horrible person. It's just kind of natural to me. But you bring in kids, or you bring in something like puppies, or just anything that has no concept of what's going on, I have an issue with. A person getting the crap beat out of them because they were doing something stupid, I have no issue. Do we need to pause?
No.
Okay. A stupid person doing something stupid and then getting punished for it, I have no issue, because that person is aware of what they're doing. But, saying, cutting off dogs' body parts, or putting them into, or kids, and having them die in situations that they had nothing to do with, I have issues with those because the things involved have no situational awareness of what's going on or no concept of what it is that
no
they're doing.
culpability, no responsibility for any of the circumstances that got them to that point. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think we should make fun of anybody who's been killed.
Well, I mean, there are certain things.
Unless someone deliberately did something that,
if they did
that
something
got themselves
stupid,
killed, yeah.
Or if they were engaged, like somebody breaking into a house and getting shot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why would you feel? I mean, the situation might have been shitty, but at least,
right.
Sorry, man. You
kind of brought it on yourself.
Exactly.
Bit,
yeah. But when you're telling me, I'm not saying I have no empathy for adults, but just kids are very. I got very tore up when I saw that picture of the kid on the beach. Initially when I saw it, I thought it was a kid passed out because it was just so unlikely what I was seeing was actually what was happening.
Right. Most times news media will not put actual photos of corpses.
Corpses of children.
Yeah.
Of children.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, I thought it was a kid laying... it took me a day to actually realize that it was a dead kid. And then I didn't realize that it was a kid from Syria. In any case...
we should probably proceed to the next topic.
Yeah, because I'm about to punch something if I keep talking about that particular one.
So... now we proceed to the part of the show where we make fun of someone for actually doing something that deserves ridicule.
Because they're stupid. Let's just assume they're stupid.
Donald Trump, everyone! Pretty much, I mean, like, we could just go anywhere, like, anything he's ever said.
Honestly, but I don't dislike the guy. I actually was not against the guy until I heard this particular thing. Do you want to?
Well, okay. So you were okay with him being racist?
Yeah. At least you know where he's coming from.
And I know where he's coming from, but I also know that he's dead wrong about it. He isn't trying to veil his racism under some sort of other pretense. Yeah, okay, that's great. But like. Everybody has a drunk uncle who's going to speak his mind. Does that mean he should be the president? No. Okay, so let's move on from this whole at least he speaks his mind thing. That's BS. That's not a qualification for the office of presidency.
I have a soft spot for people that are straight out. So, but in any case,
nevertheless, here's what he said in the most recent GOP debate. He said the vaccines cause autism. We've been over this on this show several times.
7, 10 times.
Yeah. And here's what's great about this. Normally the people who are talking about this are people who have no, political aspirations or any of that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, so they can say this kind of stuff because there's really no chance that anybody's going to really call them out on it on the worldwide stage. But here's a guy who's running for the president of the United States who's actually leading the party in polls. And he still comes out and says this, and what's great about it is that none of the other politicians on that stage, several of them are doctors. Actual doctors who have access to all the medical journals and everything that have basically debunked this left, right, center, 2 ways from Sunday, all that kind of stuff. And here, what's crazy is not a single one of them contradicted him. And you would think that these other politicians on the stage who are actually vying for his spot, who would seize on the opportunity, here's a great opportunity for me to trip him up and make him look like an asshat on stage in front of the whole, but not a single one of them contradicted him, including Rand Paul and Ben Carson, the actual doctors. Ben Carson is a brain surgeon, and he didn't contradict. The only thing he really did was say, you should probably space out the vaccines. He didn't say, no, that's wrong. Like he should have. If he actually wanted the nomination, he should have called him out on the stage and said, actually, that's BS, and here's all the scientific literature that supports my position on this.
I'm just kind of wondering, is it, if you're pro-birth control and vaccines, is it impossible to be a Republican president?
Well, this comes back to that whole rhino thing. When someone's if you actually are pro-birth control or continued funding of Planned Parenthood, which from a federal level, all the money that goes to Planned Parenthood is just for birth control and disease exams, right? You guys know this, right? It is federally legislated law that has been around for a while now that says that federal funds that go to Planned Parenthood cannot be used for abortions. Period. So defunding Planned Parenthood from a federal level, all it does
is it defunds
birth control, pap smears,
Health services.
Yeah, health services. That's only related to health, not related to abortions. And that really frustrates me.
Well, it frustrates me because you've built an entire platform on a false issue.
Exactly.
Same with the vaccines. It's like you've built this entire platform on a thing that doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Not saying autism doesn't exist, but the vaccine-autism relationship does not exist. But you built an entire platform on this non-existent issue.
Yep.
And now you're selling baby body parts and what have you. That was their entire issue. But what they've defunded has nothing to do with that particular aspect that they're complaining about.
Mm-hmm.
How do they fund that, by the way?
The actual abortions aspect of it, it's private donations and the fees that people pay to use their services.
So it's
like
to do
Planned
with
Parenthood isn't like a free service that you get to go use if you're a citizen. There are some services there that are fully subsidized,
which
but
should be.
Abortions are not one of them. You do still have to pay for abortions. It's several $100s.
And that's the aggravating thing. The thing is, if you implement birth control, you have less abortions.
Exactly.
But now you've defunded the part that gives you birth control.
So you're more likely to have people who want abortions who are now going to basically...
Who are still not using the funds that they've not been given.
So, yeah. Anyway, but coming back to what Trump said about vaccines causing autism, this proves that even, like, the guy in the party who a lot of people are saying, well, he's the least, like, ideological, I guess, he's the least
Less
ideologue
political?
out of all of them. Like, they're saying that he speaks his mind and that he's less like all the other candidates because he does whatever he wants and he'll call them out for being corrupt on stage and stuff. It's like, look, it doesn't matter if he's the least shitty out of all of them.
He's still shitty.
If he's still really shitty, especially about things like proven scientific facts that he's willing to basically just go against on the stage. And here's what's really crazy about this. Most of the people, at least in my experience, that are anti-vax are actually liberals. So I don't even know what he's trying to do.
Well, that's what blows my mind. You could have not mentioned that topic and still been okay. You would have actually probably been safer bet had you not mentioned that topic. And if somebody asked you, I'll talk to the doctors. Mm-hmm. Honestly, if somebody said that, I would say, you know what?
Yeah.
At least you're pointing it in the direction of somebody who might know something.
Here's what a politician should say when they're asked a question about something they know jack shit about. They should say, that's not my expertise. I'm a politician. If you want to know about vaccines and the safety therein, go talk to your doctor. Every one of the doctors out there is more. Every one of the doctors out there is more qualified to talk about this topic than I am. If you want to talk about economics, you want to talk about military stuff, you want to talk about foreign relations, I'm your guy. Don't talk to me about medical stuff because that's not what I studied in school. That's not what I had my whole career doing.
The problem is these are all fad topics. I don't mean that, obviously autism is a fad. And I'm sure somebody's going to get up in arms saying, oh, you don't take it seriously. No, autism is a serious thing.
It's a serious issue, but the idea that vaccines cause it
it's not even that.
It's faddish.
So, but the topic as a political thing is a fad, like Planned Parenthood.
Yep.
This is a fad topic. This is not something that should really be. It is a medical service, and should not be like any sort of political.
Right.
What else was there? That like fucking immigrants.
Yeah.
I don't mean fucking immigrants. I mean the topic fucking. But
well, dude, everyone should have enough sex. I think immigrants should.
I would not know. Okay. But in any case, that is a fat topic. It should not be a fat. There should just have been legislation in place of people are coming across. How do we nationalize these people so that they become tax-paying normal citizens? So
this is a really simple issue to solve. We don't need to spend money on a wall. We don't need to spend a bunch of money deporting them. All we need to do is say, all right, great. If anybody wants to move here, we're going to grant you a work visa as long as you can pass our criminal background check that you've not been a serial killer in your home country or something. We grant you a work visa. You come here, and as soon as you get here, we start you on the process to permanent resident. And if you attain that, then you're eligible for citizenship. And during this whole process, while you're paying taxes and working in the actual system instead of getting paid under the table, you pay your taxes, and those taxes go to funding education in terms of getting you educated on the citizenship process, getting you educated in speaking the English language. And by the time, if we've got all these people to actually go through the system, and just instead of letting them work under the table for all these people that are not paying their taxes,
that's an easier way to actually kind of stop this problem. Are any of your employees not? Who are your employees? Give me paperwork of everybody that works here. Because if you have no companies that hire people that aren't legal, then that would stop the problem of having people here working illegally.
Right. The problem is no matter what you do, you're going to have people that are finding loopholes for it. But if we were to say, look, we're going to give you a fast track to citizenship. If you come here and you're willing to work and you're willing to pay your taxes, and you're going to, I would imagine somewhere in the high 90% range of all the immigrants coming to the country would love to get fast track for citizenship, pay their taxes, become an American citizen. Probably would love to learn to speak English if they were given a program that structured all that for them easily. The problem is they get here and the citizenship process takes longer and is more frustrating and more expensive and nowhere near the kind of level of ease that it needs to be. So that most of the time they decide it's easier and more expedient to be illegal and then get deported and come back again. That's the biggest problem we have, is that our immigration system is completely screwed. We need one that's simple. They come here, it doesn't matter how they get here. Boat, plane, walk across the border, dog sled, I don't care how they get into this country. If they come here and they want to work and they want to pay their taxes, they want to be a citizen.
It's a moneymaker too.
It is. And if they're paying their taxes, they're helping pay for the Medicare that they're going to need. They're paying for the whatever it is.
Thing I don't understand. If you stop giving social services or any sort of assistance to somebody that is not registered as a legal resident here, that would eliminate a lot of the problems as well.
Here's the issue with that is that becomes a human rights issue.
But the thing is
we shouldn't just stop providing the services. We should make the services available to everyone who is registered, and then make the registration process as simple as sign your name here.
Now we take taxes from.
Yeah, we take taxes from.
But that's what I'm saying. The issue is they're not giving them any sort of process to become citizens.
Yeah.
But they're providing services.
Yeah. When the easier recourse between all of your different options is to be an illegal immigrant, it's easier and cheaper and more expedient for them to pay a coyote to bring them over the border, get them into the country illegally, and start working for a company that will pay them under the table. When that's easier than the citizenship application process, your immigration system is broken. Don't build a wall, reform the immigration system.
How many societies in recorded history have built walls? China was one, and why did they do it? To stop the Mongols.
Right.
I don't think that's quite the same thing.
It was an invading force,
exactly.
not a...
Yeah,
and that didn't even work.
Exactly right. And then there was the Berlin Wall.
Mm-hmm. Let's see how well that turned out, guys.
Exactly right. And then there was the wall in Israel, separating Palestinian regions from Israel. That's not a very pleasant wall either. It's causing a lot of issues in that country as well. Walls are kind of a final lack of solution.
Right.
It is not.
It's more of a gesture of don't come here than it is actually a prevention of coming here.
It's an antagonistic gesture.
It's saying is you're not allowed here.
It's saying fuck you.
Yeah.
Is what it's saying.
And then a lot of people are probably likely to say, oh yeah, you're going to build a wall? Well, dig a tunnel under it. Guess what? They've already done that with the chain link fences. How much better is a wall than chain link fences? They can just dig a tunnel under it and go through there.
And the thing
there was a guy that got caught with 2 tons of cocaine that he was hauling through a tunnel underground from Mexico, but they had lights in it and a little trolley system and stuff. They will come up with sophisticated ways to get into this country. The better way is to make it so that is more expensive and preposterous than just coming over the border, getting registered with a tax ID, paying taxes, and getting on a path to citizenship.
And the thing is if there was an easy way to become a citizen, then I don't think anybody would have issues when you hear somebody getting deported. It's like you did not take advantage of a system that was available to you.
Right. If it's downright easy and it involves
still come here.
And you still come here, and it's like why would you get involved in a process and a system that costs more and is more obtuse than just going through the normal system? If we made it super easy, there would be no reason for anybody to hire a coyote or for anyone to work under the table. It's like, look, it's easier. You're less likely to get deported, and you're gonna actually get your path to citizenship. If that's what they really want, then that is exactly what they'll do. And if they actually want to work under the table, then we'll have no problem in rounding them up and deporting them. We don't have to feel bad about it.
Exactly right. Exactly. But right now there is no option. And a lot of these people are running away from bad situations too. So, but they have no recourse.
Okay.
Well, we were talking about vaccinations, and somehow we got into immigration.
Well, that's another Trump issue. It's one of his big talking points, and we just basically debunked everything he had to say about that. So,
well, on to slightly more intelligent topics.
Yeah, science. You want to just go back and forth on these?
Yeah, might as well. This was something that I was really super pumped about when I heard and saw about. Jimmy actually brought it to my attention. But there was a patient that I think it was due to cancer or something.
Mm-hmm.
The cartilage and a lot of their ribcage structure was gone. So they 3D printed a titanium ribcage that fitted on and like bolted onto,
including the sternum.
Like a flexible sternum, some sort of spring assembly. And they put it in, and they're fine. This is literally a cyborg now with an indestructible. Well, I'm sure you could break everything else, but the front of their ribcage is indestructible.
If he happens to get stabbed or shot right in the sternum, it's probably to survive with minimal injury.
And it's about I think melting point of titanium is like 3,000 degrees or something. Yeah. So atmospheric re-entry, the ribcage would probably survive.
Yep.
So
well, at least you would know exactly who it was.
Yeah. So I thought that was really cool.
So just to give you guys a little background on that, a lot of people think, 3D printing, that's only available with like composite substrates like plastics and things like that. So 3D printing with metals is actually done by using the powdered form of the metal and then using a laser, an electron laser, to melt the metal at the exact level where it needs to be on that layer of the 3D print. So they sprinkle this powdered stuff all over it, and they burn it on there with a laser, and then do the whole process all over again, and thousands of times by every little layer that's going microns at a time.
And it's a much more stable structure to whatever it is you're building when it's built in that way. You're not just melting a slab of whatever material it is into that shit. You are pretty much molecular level almost.
Yeah.
It's awesome. We were talking about replacing an entire skeleton, but then you would run into problems.
At this point, it's basically the only thing that's preventing that is the amount of trauma that it would cause. So you wouldn't do it all at once, but you could hypothetically replace an arm bone and then a hand configuration and then a leg bone or something like that. If you did it all really gradually over time, allowing them time to heal and allowing the body to deal with any sort of infections or other things like that could come up from the surgery, and you're not doing the whole body surgery all at once, then hypothetically we could have titanium skeletons.
But I don't know what would go into like the musculature, and because there's nothing that you can humanly do that's going to break your skeleton.
Right.
And sometimes there are bones that are designed to break before something horrible happens to something else.
Right.
So it would be interesting. I'm curious to see where that goes. But I mean, it's started. The process has started. So.
Continuing on here, we have to try to shorten these up a little bit. But you guys may have heard about this. They discovered another Homo species, another distant past human relative in the Homo genus, Homo naledi, and it was discovered in a deep in a cave where the opening that you had to be able to squeeze through to get to the cavern where these bodies were stored was like 7 inches wide. So basically they had to recruit scientists, archaeologists, who were a certain kind of dimension in their body frame. They basically, the whole team was female because they were the only ones small enough to get through there. And, they found something like 20-some bodies worth of fragments. They didn't find full skeletons of anything, but they were able to piece together a mostly complete skeleton from all the different ones they found around. And what's really crazy about this is that they had a small brain case, so they're from a brain standpoint they're not closely related to us, but their legs and arms are a lot longer, so they're pretty much it's bipedal. And it's that's really cool. So it's opened up a whole new idea of a branch of the human ancestry that was never even really thought to exist before.
Yeah, less intelligent basketball players apparently were in our genetic.
Man, that must have meant they were really dumb.
I forgot the name of the scientist, but there was a new study that was suggesting.
Paul Kelly of Oxford University's Sleep and Circadian Neuroscience Institute.
Well, what he said. But there was talk that our actual wake-sleep rhythm at the moment is incorrect. His suggestion, of course, it varies a little bit depending on the age group that you're in, but on average that it should start at 10 a.m. and go till about 6 or 7 or so, as opposed to the 5, 6 a.m. to 3 or 4 that we currently are that we're currently working off. And one of the things that Jimmy and I were talking about was it's kind of older thinking that the getting up super early to work, sleeping, waking pattern. I don't know if it was based on any sort of science. It was really based on the fact that you go to the fields super early in the morning and you want the maximum amount of sunlight, and you get back and just...
Or even in the corporate world, if you're the first one in the office, you tend to get more stuff done. You end up exhausted at the end of the day, and you end up with like a really crappy social life, and your family life goes in the tank. But if all you're shooting for is like highest productivity out of your whole team, then early, but the early riser kind of thing, you're going to get to the office and early and stay late, then but that's not...
Most companies are
healthy.
International now too. Yeah. So the thing is getting up. I mean, there is certain shifts that you work where you work better with other entities worldwide, and the thing is, and
telepresence.
Exactly right. So certain things, you may want to be awake earlier, and may want to be awake later. But the thing is, if we shifted our work schedule to 10, and we still work the same amount of time,
worked into later into the day,
I don't think that would be a big problem. Considering so much of the work is not dependent on what hours corporations are working. Most services that we need these days, like when you go grocery shopping, those are not business at like 10. There was a time when I remember malls were open during business hours and then they close after business hours. Mm-hmm. What use is that? You can't use them because most people are at work.
Right.
So things of that nature. So being open later or being open, so it's the world has changed. We are using a lot of relics of things that we used to do decades ago that we are still forcing ourselves or molds to fit into these days that no longer really have any reason or logic behind them. I'm all for it. I have no issue working 8, 9, 10 hours a day, but waking up at crack
of dawn.
Yeah, because I usually wake up at about 4 a.m. to get to work, and it's no matter how I've done it for maybe 14 years, I still hate it.
Yep.
So there's no amount of doing it that's going to make me like it, and there's nobody. I think I met one person, and I hated them, that was happy at that time of morning. It's just
right. That's just unnatural.
Exactly.
If you're happy at that time in the morning,
you've got to be at least miserable for me to get along with you in the morning. So it's an interesting study. I would like to see more as far as where that goes.
Right. So far, this is one scientist, albeit a well-respected and well-positioned
in
scientist.
the field.
In working in this particular field, not like someone who's
not
having some sort of
star or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So
someone who actually knows about this kind of stuff, making this hypothesis. If it gets supported by more scientists, maybe we might actually start seeing some changes.
And at least
in the
if it's
real
open
world.
to discussion, I would like to see more discussion. But it is
time for some peer review.
And this is actually a topic that maybe you guys would like to chime in on. I'm assuming most of you, like us, don't like getting up at the butt crack of morning. What would you think about having a work shift that started at 10 and went till 6?
Right. Or even 7, if you wanted to make it so that it's the actual 8-hour shift with an hour lunch.
With an hour lunch or so. I think people would work 10 to 6 with no lunch.
Honestly, I would rather have the sun help me wake up in the morning and then be able to stay awake even after the sun sets, rather than have to get up before the sun is out and then having to start my brain going, because at that point you're going against the circadian rhythms, and that's actually the Sleep and Circadian Neuroscience Institute. The idea is that if you're trying to get up before the sun rises every morning, pretty much no matter what time of year it is, unless it's in the middle of the summer, you're going to end up getting up when it's still dark outside, and it's going to take you a lot longer to get conscious and get productive. Why not just wait until the sun comes up, then start working, pretty much jump into being productive right away, and then, if you're at work until after the sun sets, so what? You're already awake and you're already productive. Mm-hmm. I would much rather have that be the case and maybe see even an increase in productivity. I think that if there were some forward-thinking organizations out there like Google or somebody like that who wanted to try,
and I'm sure Google moving does.
Maybe they do. Maybe they have.
I don't think they have regular business hours.
It would be interesting to see if they actually told a few of their teams who work on similar projects to another couple of teams to use as the placebo or the control group. Say, all right, you guys starting your day at 10 a.m. and you guys do whatever you're already doing, and we'll see if productivity changes
That's
at all. I think
that's a cool idea. I
Yeah,
like it. I like
yeah.
it.
I'm not sure if a private organization would be willing to risk their profitability on a science project like that, but there's got to be someone out there like somebody at SpaceX or somebody at Richard Branson's Virgin companies or some of these
Tesla.
Yeah. So some of these companies that are run by the eccentric billionaire types who love to do the experimental kind of stuff.
It's just we live in a world where the sun being up or not has nothing to do with
Right.
the productivity or the nature of our business.
Right. The only thing it has to do is with whether we're actually awake or not, whether we're going to be productive or not. And so we should probably try to set it up so that we're doing our work during the times when we're most likely to be productive, not when the sun's going to be up or not.
Exactly right.
So
exactly right.
We already sort of skipped over the This Week in Thoroughly Stupid because we talked about Trump earlier because that was related to the politics stuff. So if you're wanting to see the This Week in Thoroughly Stupid, rewind and go back to the Trump section. So I, of course, was an idiot and drained all of my... Well, I guess there's enough in there for a little bit of a taste, so we'll go with that.
Well...
Once again, Tommyknocker Brewery, Small Patch Pumpkin Harvest Ale.
I honestly was not blown away.
I wasn't blown away either. I wasn't expecting it to be.
It was decent.
Yeah.
I don't really know if I tasted any pumpkin, but
I don't know if I tasted pumpkin. I tasted harvesty spices.
Yeah, no, I did, and
like the molasses that's in there and stuff like that. A little bit, but the flavoring in this is really, really subtle. You have to sort of do the whole thing afterwards to be able to taste it. But
well, I mean, I have to compare it to my favorite drink so far on the show, which was the Not Your
Father's Root Beer.
Yeah, because that was just awesome all around. This is if we're talking 5 as absolute average.
I think we're on a we're on a 1 to 10 scale.
Yeah, so
5 being absolutely average.
This to me 6. It's not. I'm
going to rate it a 6 as well.
So, yeah, it's not bad, but I would not buy this again.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll make sure I drink the rest of it before our next one.
Cheers, bro.
That's empty.
All right, guys. All right. Well, appreciate you guys hanging out with us again. We are thinking of doing more of these shows outdoors, kind of like this, even during the fall and winter. Let us know what you think. It's a little, I guess, nicer than being inside and such. A couple of people have been asking me as far as maybe doing like cigar reviews. I don't know if I should integrate them into this show. I don't even know if you guys are interested.
Well, you have your own cigar blog, right?
I do, but maybe I don't know. You guys tell us. We don't want to put too much.
Maybe we do like something where you've done a recent cigar review on your blog, where there's maybe 10 or 15 minutes worth of talking material on the cigar. At that point, you can do a digest.
Something, yeah, because we've got enough
highlights
stuff.
Of the cigar
we put so much stuff in these podcasts. We have to kind of maybe slim them down a little bit. But again, we appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Hopefully you guys are enjoying these as much as we're enjoying making them. And I guess we'll try to do it on a more consistent basis, we keep saying.
Well, the more important part is consistent quality. And
yes.
I think we're getting closer to that than we are to time consistency, but
time as far as how often we do.
Yeah. Well, part of the reason why it's been difficult for us to do them on a scheduled basis recently is because you've been living so far away. So
I'm moving back to Denver, so this should become a lot easier here in the next month or two. So we'll figure it out. I think the next one we're bringing in a guest.
We're going to try to get a guest to come in here and talk with us about the higher education system in our country and how there are some egregious inefficiencies to it, but also maybe some of the inner workings that a lot of people don't really understand and why. So, for instance, it costs so much to go to college and things like that. So
things of that. We're going to try bringing more subject matter experts to discuss some of these topics. Not every time, but enough to. Especially on the heavier duty subjects. We still have a particular topic that we want to do that's super heavy duty that we're trying to...
Well, that's going to be a delicate one for sure.
Yeah, so...
Well, again, thank you everyone for tuning in. We appreciate And please give us suggestions about things you'd like to hear us talk about. We've been doing current events a lot, but we'd love to hear about specific issues that maybe don't have a lot of press, but are really interesting topics to talk about. I'd love to do episodes that aren't necessarily related to current events, because a lot of times current events are really depressing. So
it's stupid. Yeah, racist.
So please tell us what you'd like to hear us talk about. And
we'll see you for episode
11.